How do you do? My name is Nakajima of the NTT Data Group, and I would like to talk about IoC Lite. When there's a lot of IOCs, how the organization can filter to reduce the number of IOCs to be responded to, and also in regard to registered IOCs, how can they be eliminated and deleted from the list that you make? I would like to talk about the standards to apply for this. This is the agenda. First, I would like to introduce myself, and then after that, I would like to talk about the challenges that we have faced in terms of IOC management, and then our solution about the creation of a prioritization criteria for IOCs, as well as the deletion standards with the IOC lifecycle model. First of all, my introduction. My name is Yusuke Nakajima of NTT Data Group, and I entered the company in 2019. And for the first 4 years, I was involved in AI, such as image recognition and natural language processing. And then from 2023, I was assigned to cybersecurity, and I entered the CCERT organization, NTT Data Cert, for incident response, as well as IOC management. And LLM is gaining much attention recently, but we're looking at the improvement of CCERT work using AI. This is the kind of work that I'm involved in currently. First, in NTT Data Cert, we'd like to talk about how we do IOC management. And there we have the Malware Information Sharing Platform, MISP, which is a mechanism that has been created for handling IOCs and domain names. And we process this, and for firewalls and SIEM, we apply this. And as a CCERT organization, we distribute this to NTT Data Group companies. By taking advantage of this mechanism, one benefit is that when there's new sources of information can be integrated quite easily. As one example, there is a lot of things that we have to handle, but we can identify quickly, identify sources and integrate the information so that we can quickly prevent incidents from happening. And in operating IOC management, there are two major challenges that we have faced. One, in regard to the IOC registration, there are the issue of the limits. In regard to the limits, it would not be possible to face new threats if we reach a limit, and we would be not able to detection on everything. And also, there may be outdated IOCs that remain registered, and what used to be malicious are often becoming outdated, and so there is the response that is necessary by SOC, and that's another challenge. In regard to the registration limit challenge that we have for IOCs, we decided to create prioritization criteria of IOCs so that we can focus on just IOCs that are necessary to look at, to reduce the number of IOCs to respond to. And among the registered IOCs, if they become outdated, so that they are low-risk IOCs for the organization, it is necessary to remove. So there is a IOC lifecycle model to establish standards to delete. And second, we have the issue of false positive fatigue. And we are creating an IOC deletion standard to respond to this challenge. First, I'd like to talk about the IOC prioritization criteria. Here is the overview. There is a large volume of IOCs, and there are three key criteria for filtering to reduce the number of IOCs in our approach. One is the port number. Next is the concept of pyramid of pain is applied. so that we focus more on domain than IP. And there's also the custom risk score, which is abstract, but we have a unique risk score. And what this represents is the sophistication level of the attacker associated with the IOCs. So these are the three criteria we use for filtering of the number of IOCs to respond to. And in coming up with this criteria, it's necessary to analyze our security environment within the organization. For example, in our organization, we take advantage of an external initiative, and among them, for our environment, we have confirmed that our initial access is difficult for outside attackers, and even when they come in, it's difficult to attack the resources. So when it comes to unsophisticated attackers, we do not have to focus on them as much as sophisticated attackers, and so we have to look at the IOCs from that perspective. And in regard to our SOC team, we are carrying out monitoring 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we are looking at EDR solutions in our structure. But when we look at EDR measures, there are weaknesses of EDR that have to be covered. This has been pointed out in a variety of different reports. And so EDR is good for detecting infections, but it is relatively weak in detecting C2 communications, and we want to make up for that. And so therefore, we want to collect IOCs regarding C2 communications. So that was the second requirement. The third requirement is in our security environment, our ports are restricted to port 80 and 443. So the other ports are not necessary for us. And there is more of a priority given to domain-based IOCs rather than IP-based IOCs. And if there is communication directly to the IP, from that standpoint, it's easy to detect threats. And so if we base our thinking on the concept of the pyramid of pain and look at the cost for IP-based IOCs, we felt that there should be priority to domain-based IOCs according to the pyramid of pain approach. And that's the fourth point. To summarize what I've talked about, there are 4 requirements that we have identified. First, we're going to focus on advanced sophisticated attackers. Second, we're looking at C2 communications. And the third is that we have focused on ports 80 and 443, and we have given priority to domains instead of IP addresses. And in regard to the points 2, 3, and 4, how do we identify these is a question for number 2, but we have to look at the source of the IOC information, and there are cases where the C2 context is added, and so therefore for items 2, 3, and 4, it's possible for us to acquire the information necessary to deal with this. But when it comes to IOCs associated with sophisticated attackers, how do we find that?
Also, as I mentioned earlier, in the C2 related IOCs, should have the higher priority. And also, I'll just introduce one of them, but there are others that the elements or the factors that we have identified. By combining them, we have made this risk score calculation logic. So that is calculated. And this is the just as the chain, low, medium, high, critical. So we have using 4-level scoring system to do the prioritization for those items. This is an example of the critical of the IOC prioritization criteria. So the 50 plus 50 will be added for the IOC risk score calculation, and then C2 is plus 30. In the fingerprint and you can see from the fingerprint that in order to avoid the detection, if they change it, once we know that, then we would add the plus 20 scores based on the certificate scores to do data analysis. And then the certificate, if the duration is too long, if the validity period is too long, then risk score will be reduced. So therefore, it is minus 10 in total. Out of 100 in total, that 90 will become a critical, and 90 and above will become a critical in the final score. Using this idea, one of the examples, let me show you the real-world example. And we have identified the threat box as a reliable information source with sufficient context, and is a very good information source. However, one of the issues of this threat box is the registers around 500 IOCs daily, but then that means it takes about 15,000 per month capacity is taken by this capacity overload of security devices, and whether the manual verification of each IOC is like 500 IOCs per day, and therefore the operation is impractical because too much burden, and so each IOCs. So that is why the IOC filtering is applied. The port number that we would narrow it down, and then risk score to be narrowed down, and only for the high and critical. Out of 500 IOCs, we have reduced it to about 80 IOCs, and then domain would have the highest priority for certain domains, and then we can reduce that numbers to 50 or so IOCs, so that 90% reduction was possible, and then those are 50 in our organization, whether it is a value IOCs, which is for our organization, which one is valuable, that we are able to identify that. And then, let me talk about IOC Lifecycle's model. Let me briefly explain about IOC's Lifecycle model. So the deletion criteria. In creating this, what we thought it was important is the third point on the bottom, as you can see on the second column from the left. So why the organization continued to use the old IOCs based on the internal interview, that is, as we found out from the investigation. In the IOC, when it is deleted, then internally, there are a lot of discussion whether it should be, but from the SOC team, by deleting IOC, then deleted IOC, what if the attacker can use the deleted IOC, which it was before I joined. I don't know the exact details because they are before I joined the organization. So therefore, deletion criteria, in order to persuade them, using the data, we need to show that certain IOCs have lower risk. So therefore, we should delete it, and it's better to delete it because we have the other ones which has higher priority. That is the data-driven removal criteria is needed. So that is we share this information with the SOC team and other experts. Then this removal conditions has been approved, although we have not started to use it, but from next month or the following months, we will use this data-driven removal criteria will be used to delete the existing registered SOCs. So that's rather IOCs. So these are the IOCs. So that the summary, we are met with one of the conclusion is the IOC registration limits on security devices pose a significant challenge, as failing to filter out the low-risk outdated IOCs can prevent the timely registration of high-risk. And by having the low-risk or outdated IOCs can prevent the timely registration of the high-risk emerging threats. So therefore, the prioritization is important. So we need to do the IOC filtering is important. And also, removal criteria has been established so that the IOCs will be regularly removed, so that we can have the for the which those relates to our organization as well seem to be a higher risk should be collected in terms of IOCs. So in case of the low risk IOCs would be deleted on a regular basis. That concludes my presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you.